What is poppin', my people? It's your boy Mark here, Marcky Sports, back again. I'm excited. Today we are going to go through the top 10 wide receivers in the 2025 NFL Draft. Been a long time coming. Been putting as much effort as I possibly could into this. And let me tell you, man, this was actually much more difficult than the running backs. First of all, because I think receivers are just very difficult to evaluate and watch film on. But in the second one, this might not be a very top-heavy wide receiver class. But my goodness, are there a lot of dudes that have very high floors, especially if they're going to be used in a specific role. So we're going to talk about all that. I'm not going to cover all the guys that I really like just because they're in my top 10. It doesn't mean that I'm not a fan, because I'm a fan of a lot of these guys. So let's get right into it. And before we do, guys, if you love the NFL draft, if you're a big fan of, Denver sports, NFL draft content, really the NFL as a whole, be sure to hit the subscribe button, man. Show me some love, like the video. Let me know what you guys think and interact with me in the comments. You already know that I love that. All right, let's go ahead first and let's start with a few honorable mentions of mine. All right. And I love these dudes, especially the first two. Xavier Restrepo, wide receiver from Miami, is one of my favorite receivers. I did a film review on him a few months back, and just tough as nails. Somebody that you absolutely want on your football team. You can tell that he's someone that loves football, and he's going to contribute very heavily to a team. The reason he didn't crack my top 10 is because for me, he projects 100% strictly as a slot receiver. He's going to have to be used in a very specific type of role. But man, he's tough for somebody his size. He's, undersized, doesn't weigh much, but he's got a lot of his strength in his lower body, which you love to see, kind of built like a running back a little bit. Lacks the explosion, lacks the speed. I think he ran like a 4.7 or something at his combine, but that's not his game. He's just good, catches everything. I think he's someone that you'd love to have on your team. Jalen Noel, very similar in terms of similar reasons why he wasn't, listed like Xavier Restrepo. Now, this guy's definitely got more explosion and more speed than Xavier Restrepo does, but I do believe that he's a little bit more limited into the slot receiver role. But I will say Jalen Noel was extremely close. He's probably my 10B if I had to do the top 10. Just very explosive, like short area quickness is amazing, and then he blew up at the combine in terms of the way that he tested. Can he end up having inside out versatility? Sure. But because I don't know that, I don't really see it. And obviously Jaden Higgins was running the show there. Jalen Noel's not there. And then Pat Bryant is somebody else that I like, man. Big fan of his game. At Illinois, he didn't always have the best quarterback play, but he's just solid. A little bit of an older prospect, but he's just solid all around. Not going to wow you with his athleticism, but he's just somebody that kind of gets the job done. He's a very high floor prospect. And let me tell you, he's probably the best run blocking wide receiver in the NFL draft. This dude loves to get his nose dirty and go lighten people up. So there's going to be teams that love him. I see him as a potential day 2 pick, no doubt about it, but very, very early day 3, if anything. But I think day 2 is certainly where really all of these guys are going to go. And Savion Williams is someone that I struggled with a lot to put in my top 10. He's probably my 10C. I really love Savion and Jalen Noel. My issue with Savion Williams is this. He's way too hot or cold of a prospect for me. You just don't know, man. He could be unbelievably productive and good in the NFL. He could be a huge bust. He's got the highest bust potential, I think, of a lot of these receivers, but he's also got a very, very high floor. And because it's just such a range, I feel like for him, the key is going to be getting him with an offensive coordinator and a coach and a scheme that's really going to fit his skills. And I think he could be very productive. He also might take a couple years to get rolling, but I think he's a really fun player. And then Isaiah Bond, very similarly. Now, obviously, Isaiah Bond is a lot smaller built than Savion Williams, but this dude's like a little jitterbug. He's got a lot of explosion, short area quickness. He's a very, very fluid athlete. I mean, he's buttery smooth when he runs. But I just feel like he's going to have a very limited role. And also, he's very dependent, like scheme dependent. I think the type of scheme and the type of coach that he gets is going to be key in terms of his overall success. So I wanted to shout out those dudes because I got a lot of love for them, and I did not want them to be unmentioned. So let's get into my wide receiver number 10. Might be a surprise to some of y'all, and this is not a Colorado bias. In fact, I don't even really care for CSU. So sorry, all my Rammies out there. But this dude, Torrey Horton, man, is someone that I'm glad I waited a long time to put this list out because he really came on to me, bro. He's a really good player. Unfortunately, last year he only played 5 games. He got hurt, missed the rest of the season. But the previous 2 years at CSU, he was just an absolute dog. I mean, very productive, super well-rounded wide receiver. You look at what he did in 2022 as, I mean, he was really a sophomore because he had a couple years at a previous college, like a really small one. But he had 71 catches and over 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. And then in 2023, he had 96 catches, 1,144 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And then, like I said, last year he had a down year because he only played in 5 games, but 38 catches for 331. So he was on a pretty decent pace when you're looking at that too. But just someone that when I looked at him, man, I'm like, he played a decent amount in the slot in 2023. Like it was like 25%, but a lot more. So he's got experience playing outside and inside. I view him as a true X type of receiver in the NFL. Super savvy, but route runner, man. It just seems like he's always open. Does a really good job of like having good body position, being able to utilize his decent size at 6'2" to his advantage, box a lot of these guys out, make some tough catches. He's got great hands. Just a really overall good player, man. Great athlete. I think at the combine, he tested really well also. He ran a 4.41 with a 1.53 split, 37.5-inch vertical. And you can see some of that explosion on film. But I was just surprised how good he was, how solid he was. He played great in 2023 against Travis Hunter when they had their matchup. I mean, the guy just seems to always be making plays. And he gets to his top gear really quickly. I really liked him, and probably one of the best prospects in this draft when it came to zone coverage. I feel like he just had a really good knack of being able to, flip his hips, turn towards the quarterback, find the cushion, and make plays. I mean, it seemed like almost all of his catches were against zone coverage. So really big fan of him. Some of the cons we're going to talk about. I mean, he's a little bit skinnier, right? He's 6'2", which is a good size, but at 196, he could struggle with press in the NFL. In college, it wasn't too big of a deal, but he could in the NFL. Obviously, the injury last year could be concerning. Now, he's clearly over it. He did go through the combine workouts and did his thing there. So he looked good at the combine. And obviously, he didn't have the highest level of competition that he was playing against at CSU in the Mountain West. So that being the case, you never know how they're going to translate. But I think he's got all the tools, man. He's got some dog in him, somebody that you love to have him on your team and you kind of hate to play against him. I think CU fans will attest to that because he kind of talks some of that shit, you know what I mean? But he was way too well-rounded for me to keep him off my top 10. I mean, truly, that's how I feel. All right, let's get into number 9. Another guy that I feel like was just way too good, man, is Jack Betch, right? And obviously, we all know about him because he tore it up at the Senior Bowl, and then there was a terrible story about his brother that was murdered in the awful New Orleans New Year's Eve tragedy. It's terrible. It was awful. So you obviously feel for the guy, but when you look at him as a prospect, this might be, of all the wide receivers in the NFL draft this year, he could arguably be the one with the highest floor, right? I just feel like, no doubt about it, he's going to be somebody that is going to be productive in the NFL. How productive? That's going to obviously be up to him, and we're going to have to see. But he's just so good. He catches everything. Contested catches across the middle in traffic, even some deep balls. I mean, he really does catch it all. He has one drop on 91 targets. He had 62 catches for 1,034 yards and 9 touchdowns. Here's a really cool Jack Betch note as well. His freshman year, before he went to TCU, he played on the LSU team with Justin Jefferson and who else? They had another dog on that team. It was the championship year when they had Joe Burrow, and they were beastly. I mean, all those guys on there. And it wasn't the championship year, but it was that similar roster. There was man, I got to figure out who the hell the other receiver was because there was another good one. But anyways, like high profile, legitimate NFL wide receivers. And he was a freshman, and he led the entire team in yards that year as a freshman. Ends up transferring over to TCU and just balls out for 2 straight years. Absolute dog. Super solid player. Like, I mean, I think he's a really good route runner. He does remind me a lot of Cooper Kupp, right? Am I saying he's Cooper Kupp? Obviously not, but his play style reminds me a lot of him. It's like you don't really understand why he's so open, but he's just consistently creating separation, and he's always open. And he's got really good ability to break tackles. He's got better size than Cooper Kupp does in a sense of like physical strength, it seems like. He doesn't come on first contact very often. He can give you some surprising yak upside. And like I said, I just think he's an extremely high floor player. I feel like when you get him, you know you're going to get a very, at worst, solid wide receiver too, somebody that can be very productive for you. Some of the cons, well, he definitely lacks a little bit in terms of like the explosion. He's not the most explosive, quick twitch type of an athlete. Could he have issues against press coverage in the NFL? Yeah, but you could really say that about all prospects. So you'll probably see that as a con. Very strong and receiver in terms of like at the catch point, and he'll take hits and hold on to the ball. He's tough as nails, but he does not seem like he's very keen on blocking as a receiver. Not only is he like not necessarily just good at it, the effort didn't always seem to be there. But that's something that I was like, maybe I'm overthinking. I looked into it. I saw some of the same things in some reports. So I figured, hey, why not put it in there? And my last con is I feel like he might need to really be a full-time slot receiver. I think in the NFL, he would benefit from that. I think he's, to maximize him, you use him more so in the slot closer to the line of scrimmage to really take advantage of the short to intermediate routes across the middle. But he did show in college that he can play inside and outside. So if he can do both in the NFL, I think he's going to be a very, very good player. So Jack Betch, really like this guy. And it's going to be a little cheesy, but this is somebody that every time he catches the ball, I just want everybody to be like, yas, Betch, because that's going to be the new tagline. So I thought it was good. All right, well, let's go to number 8 then. Number 8 is Kyle Williams. This is someone that obviously Chris Sims made everyone get under the radar because he called him wide receiver number 2 on his ranking. I respect it, but I didn't see that. A couple things. It's going to be hard for me to ever rank a 5'11", 190-pound receiver that played at Washington State as a number 2 because there's a lot of factors there. First of all, how is the size going to translate to the NFL? And then obviously the level of competition that he's playing against. But let me tell you about this dude, right? 70 catches, 1,100 yards, 14 touchdowns last year. And the year before, he actually had a really good year, I think over 800 yards. 89.8 grade against man and 21 forced missed tackles. And that is what he does. You get the ball in his hand, he makes people miss. And not just from his speed. He'll run through arm tackles and bounce off of some people. Like his contact balance is very impressive. So definitely plays a lot stronger than his 5'11", 190-pound frame will tell you. This is kind of a lazy comp. I feel like there's a lot of receivers that I comp to, but he reminded me a lot of Steve Smith because he is undersized, similar to how Steve Smith Sr. was, but he's also very strong, plays a lot stronger. He's a really good separator, man. The dude just is a nasty route runner. I mean, turns the hips, fakes the head, uses the leverage really good when it comes to man-on-man coverage against a lot of these guys. In college, he was extremely good against press. I mean, he'd be able to get off, not just with his quickness, but with his hand usage. Love the forced missed tackle, and the dude catches everything, man. He's a very, very solid receiver. I thought he was just awesome. Super fun to watch. And he can play inside and outside despite his size. He did it. He did that. Let me pull up the numbers here and see if I have kind of the breakdown a little bit. But, I just thought he was a really good, well-rounded overall player. But yeah, he had 470 total snaps. 348 of them were out wide and 119 in the slot. The fact that he has the experience and the production playing outside is going to bode really well for him. And the fact that he's played in the slot could help too. And then, so I think teams are not going to have a very difficult time figuring out how Kyle Williams can help their team. So big fan of him. Yes, the cons, he's a little bit smaller by NFL standards. No doubt about that. There's plenty of guys that are 5'11", about the same size, 5'11", 190 pounds that are very, very productive. But that's still, could be an issue. Obviously he could struggle against press in the NFL, even though he was incredibly good in college. His hands are good. They're not great. He did have some focus drops here and there that you would see. But yeah, playing at Washington State, I mean, it's a high flying offense. I don't know if it still is, but it seemed like they were. But, the level of competition is just not going to be the same. How is he going to translate over? We're going to have to see. But I'll tell you what, man, he is a fun player and he's very, very polished. He's Matthew Golden light, in my opinion. Like they're not only similar size, but they play very similarly. I just think Matthew Golden's obviously cleaner and better and played against higher level of competition and did it in big games. But I really liked Kyle Williams. He, when it's all said and done, he could probably be higher on my board, but I really liked him. And guys, one thing to keep in mind is when I'm doing these rankings, a lot of the times I always try to do it in the eyes of who I think translates into the NFL, right? Like super cleanly. And like what do teams look for in receivers? I did that with the running back. That's why I ranked Travion Henderson over Omarion Hampton because of his pass catching ability and his pass blocking. Those kinds of things I know. So Kyle Williams is someone that I think for sure can be a day two pick just because of how well rounded he is. I think all of these guys can really be day two picks. And we'll talk about when we can start getting into the day one guys. Number 7 is Jalen Royals. And this one was such a frustrating player to watch the film on. I'm not going to lie to you. And it's not because of him. It's because whoever the hell the quarterback at Utah State is awful. I mean, he is god awful. There's been so many times where Jalen Royals would just cook dudes. And he either wouldn't see him or he would throw a terrible ball. But despite all that, 55 catches last year, 834 yards, 6 touchdowns, and that was just in 7 games because he did have an injury that cut his season short. He has an 80 grade versus man coverage with a 9.4 ADOT. This dude is fun to watch, man. This guy also reminded me a lot of what Kyle Williams does, but he's much more physical, even though he's not, that much bigger. He's 15 pounds heavier and just about an inch taller, but man, he's got some Debo run after the catch ability, but he's very polished as a route runner. He can win in both man and zone. He was graded very well. Very good route runner overall, and he's pretty inexperienced when it's all said and done when it comes to the how much football he's actually played in his career. But yeah, I mean, I love this tackle breaking ability. So many times you see him catch the ball, shut a guy off, whether it be with a stiff arm or just breaking through the tackle, get a lot more yards. Really makes the most out of every opportunity that he got. And I think that that's something that's incredibly important to do when you're on an offense that's really bad and that's struggling. You just want to make the most out of those opportunities because you don't always get a lot of them. And what really stood out to me, man, there was one game I was watching and they were down like 50-21. I mean, they were getting absolutely killed. And his effort was full blown, doing what he could to get open, trying to fire his teammates up. I love that kind of stuff. I love it. Sometimes, it's nice. People always talk about it's really great to bring in guys from winning programs because they can add to your culture. Sometimes they can be it could do the opposite because they're so used to winning their whole life. They don't know how to handle this. Guys like Jalen Royal is not going to have that problem for you. He just loves to play football. You can tell. So I really like that. But yeah, I mean, the 2 full years of experience could be a con, but I think it could also be a positive because I think he's still raw and he's got a really high ceiling ahead of him. The competition that he played against, was definitely not good. And he doesn't have ideal size for an X receiver. I don't know if he ultimately will be a true outside X or if he's going to be more of a Z because he's shown that he can go in there and block too. I mean, when you're in a really bad offense, you got to do anything that you can. So we'll see, or if he's just going to be relegated to more of a slot role. But regardless, man, Jalen Royals he's a really, really fun, explosive player. I think teams are going to love him, and this dude catches everything, man. He catches everything. Really, really does. I'll get those exact numbers for you guys. Hold up. He might have had like 1 drop. Oh no, he had 3 drops. 3 drops last year, but yeah, very, very good on the contested catch. Overall, very solid receiver. I'm a big fan of Jalen Royals. All right, we're going to move here. This is going to be a big shocker to everybody, but before everybody loses their mind, this is not clickbait. This is all coming legitimately. In fact, I was very close to just entirely dropping this guy off of my top 10, but I didn't want to do it based off of things I wasn't 100% certain of. But that is number 6 is Tetairoa McMillan. And it's not really all because of the tape. I mean, I think that the tape is not as impressive as some people are saying he's a top 10 player. But let's start at the top. Let's just do it like that. So obviously played at Arizona, 6'5", 212, amazing size, 84 catches, 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns, 60% contested catch rates, incredible, and he's very, very good against man. He's also somebody that in college showed surprising run after the catch ability. I mean, explosive. It kind of would throw you off because of the type of size that he is, even though he's a little bit skinnier. He really could move. So he's got the prototypical NFL size, extremely productive in his years at Arizona, even in the years where they didn't have necessarily the best offense. He was the dude, and he was the dude. And contested catches, not a problem at all for him. Surprising yak ability. I think some of there's several. Here's the reason why he kind of dropped a little bit. There's a lot of cons here. Speed could affect consistent separation. It can. I'm not really overly concerned about it. I don't know what the real numbers were that he ran. They said it was between 4.48 and 4.55 or whatever at his pro day. I don't really care too much about that. That's plenty fast for somebody of his size. My problem with him is that the route tree there seemed to be pretty limited. He's not a very savvy route runner. A lot of the times I just kind of felt like he would get open or make catches because he was just bigger and more talented than a lot of the guys that he was playing against. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of people saw the video of him. He looked like he was at a diner talking to somebody saying, I don't really even like to watch film. I pretty much just watch it because my team makes me. I don't even really like to watch football in general, blah, blah, blah. And the way he went about doing it was like a huge turnoff. Now, I'm not going to judge anybody off of a video. I don't know what he's telling teams. I don't know what his teammates and his coaches think about him, but that shit rubbed me the wrong way. And then I proceed to go and watch him against Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter absolutely killed him. I mean, he really just, I felt like he was shutting him down a lot in that game. And then I see Steve Smith on his YouTube channel break down Ted McMillan, and he said, I watched this dude go up against Travis Hunter, and then he basically quit. You saw no effort. You saw him quit just entirely, did not really care much at all to be running. It almost like he took the life out of him. That to me raised a lot of red flags because firstly, you talk about the video that you saw, which kind of like perks your ears up, right? And then you hear about the low effort. And then you think to yourself, okay, this guy, after his first year in Arizona was killing it. He had an opportunity to transfer to a lot of different schools, I'm sure. And he didn't. Why is that? Why didn't he do it? And usually you think maybe because it's loyalty, maybe you can spin that as a good thing. But when you start to see these things about like maybe a bad work ethic, maybe attitude problems, maybe somebody that just doesn't really love football that much, you're thinking maybe he didn't want to go somewhere where he could be held accountable more because Arizona is not really known as a football college. So it was very, it was a huge red flag for me. But like I said, if you're just going based off of the tape, he's certainly one of the better receivers, even though, he needs some refining in his route running. And then also, he had a whole bunch of contested catches, which is a positive. But is it almost like there was too many contested catches, right? Because a lot of them weren't because they were poorly thrown. It's just maybe because he didn't create the most amount of separation, especially on those, intermediate and deep routes. So that could be an issue. A lot of people compare him to like Drake London or Mike Evans. To be honest with you, I see a lot of Cortland Sutton in him. Quite a bit. But check out David Talks Broncos channel on Ted McMillan recently too. He talked about a little bit of the off the field stuff. All right, let's get into number 5. Now, so we went from a guy that struggled against Travis Hunter and basically quit to a guy that absolutely torched Travis Hunter in one half. He had 7 catches on him. He had 13 catches total, but 7 catches on Travis Hunter. I think he went over 100 and something yards on him and a touchdown. And that's Alec Ayomanor, the wide receiver from Stanford at 6'2", 206. This dude is another player. He played at a terrible offense, but yet he was still very productive. 63 catches, 831 yards, and 6 touchdowns last year. 2023 was a very good year for him as well. A 14.2 ADOT is very high, very solid. What I like about this dude is that he's just a really well-sized and a receiver. He's not, he's not the biggest guy, but he's not very small either. He's just solid size, good height, weight, and speed for the NFL. He really does have it. He tested well at the combine. I think he's a true X receiver. He's got Z upside. He is still raw. He didn't play a whole bunch of, football, and he played on bad teams. And he's another one of those guys where, like in that CU game that I'm talking about, where they ended up coming back crazy. They were down a whole bunch at half. He's the guy that he had no catches in the first half. He just, fired up his team, said, "Give me the ball. Let me take this on my shoulders and go." He's a big time team leader, team captain, somebody that you can tell loves to play football. These guys that play on bad programs overall, like he did. But he's somebody that any scouting report that you hear on Alec Manor, they call him. He's like, they either say something along the lines of he's the heartbeat of the team, an amazing work ethic, very high IQ. The amount of contested catches that he had was crazy in terms of like the types of circus catches too. Man, he was making some crazy catches all across the board. Very focused player. He runs all of the different route trees, especially those the deep digs, the comebacks, the hitch routes. He does those very, very well. Just a very solid overall player. You just watch him and you're trying to find something that you don't like, and you always fall back on, well, his speed might be an issue in the NFL to separate. I don't think that that's even the case. He does have some focus drops here and there, but those things you can fix. And his blocking technique is not the greatest, but he definitely shows that he likes to go out there and block and do what he can as a blocker. I just feel like he's an extremely solid receiver overall. Someone that's going to go a lot higher than maybe many mock drafts have him, even though mock drafts now have kind of caught up and put him as a day two. I think he's a firmly solid day two player. I think he already has a wide receiver 2 floor, which is a very good thing, and he can certainly become a wide receiver 1 in the NFL as he continues to develop and get better. So big fan of Alec Manor. Just thought he was dope, man. Just thought he was dope, and I love the energy he plays with. Something that really stood out to me. All right, my number 4 wide receiver in the draft is my man Luther Burden III. And let me tell you guys, so I guess really starting at 6 here, these are where I wouldn't be surprised if any or all of these guys, maybe I would be surprised if all of them went, but I wouldn't be surprised if any of these guys went into the first round. This is kind of where the first round marker starts for me. So, number 4 is Luther Burden. Such a fun player to watch, man. I love this dude. He was awesome. 15 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. He had 86 catches, 1,200 yards, and 9 touchdowns back in 2023. Definitely not nearly as productive of a season in 2024. That's a lot of the reason why maybe he's dropping in the eyes of some. It could be that it was just not the best offense, which I would agree is not the case. Theo Weiss Jr. also was he was balling. He took another step there for him. So I don't really look at that like it's too big of a deal, because when I watch Luther Burden play, I see somebody that he immediately pops. He pops out on film, man. He is explosive and he is powerful. He has definitely got a lot of Deebo Samuel in his game. Natural playmaker. You get the ball in this guy's hand and he's going to do it. You line him up in the backfield. You can line him up in the slot. You can line him up outside. He's going to win. And he's just a playmaker, man. He catches everything too. He tracks the ball well. I really like him. I don't think he's the most refined overall route runner because they use him in so many different ways at Missouri. But go watch the 2023 film over the 2022. You're going to get a lot more. The dude is just making a mockery out of people after the catch. Unbelievable. In the SEC too, he was out there just balling. He's probably going to fit into the role of I think he's going to be a very good player regardless, but he can really he can go from being a decent receiver to an all-pro caliber receiver, depending on the system and the coach that he goes to. So unlike the first guys that I didn't mention, I think he's got a decently high floor still, but man, that ceiling can be unlimited. But yeah, overall, his route running is a little bit inconsistent. He mainly works the short and the medium routes. It doesn't mean that he can't be a deep ball catcher, like a deep ball threat, but that's really what he does, which is fine, because that's where a majority of throws in the NFL are. And the only con I guess I could put on here as well is he a diva? I mean, you hear reports that he is. I don't know. I don't always hate that. I'm honestly, usually I'm I'd rather somebody, care than not. It might rub some coaches wrong, but feed the man the ball. But I love Luther Burden, man. I think he's fun. I think you get him on your team and you're just I can't wait to mold this piece of clay into what I want him to do. And he can just do it all. And if he gets a very defined role in the NFL, he can really blow up. So big fan of Luther Burden, man. Dude is special. Getting into number 3, it is my boy, Jaden Higgins. Damn, do I love this guy, man, the more and more I look into him. I think he should be a round 1 pick at this point. No doubt about it. Because I look at the production. It is there every single year for however many years he was playing. I mean, the dude, I think he was at Eastern Kentucky. if I'm not mistaken, was balling there. Let me go back and pull it up. Yeah, he was ball. I mean, he was balling at Eastern Kentucky, um, and then comes over to Iowa State and just continues balling and gets better every single year. I mean, as a freshman, he had 10 touchdowns and over 740 yards. Unbelievably productive. Does not drop the ball. He probably has the best hands in this draft. The dude catches everything. Bad throws, good throws, overthrows, contested catches, catches across the middle, catches when you're getting hit. Dude's got glue hands. He measured at having big hands at the combine too, which is always a positive. Really like that. He is the cleanest, true outside X receiver I think of anybody in this class, especially at that size. I mean, somebody with a 6'4", 214-pound frame. He can move really well. He runs it all. He runs it all. Now, he had a pretty limited route tree in college. Like, didn't run the most versatile stuff, but whatever he was asked to run is very common to things that you see outside X receivers running. You know, the go routes, the deep posts, the hitch routes, the deep comebacks. A lot of those style of routes he was just really good at. He does a great job of utilizing his size and creates good body position. And he's a very good athlete. I don't know. I think what it was, because you're starting to see a lot more Jaden Higgins hype now after the combine. I think the combine and the way that he tested at the combine was really one of those that made people be like, oh man, maybe I should go back and watch Jaden Higgins, because you don't see like a lack of speed or explosion on tape, but I just think maybe they just assumed so. But the dude ran a 4.47 at 6'4", 153 split with a 39-inch jump, very explosive. You can see that. And what I liked about him too, man, he catches the ball, turns upfield and goes. I mean, he looks. Sometimes I thought, is that Jalen Noel when I was watching it? But it was actually Jaden Higgins. Very good. Like I said, true X receiver, unbelievably reliable hands. Some of the cons, like I wrote here that he tested faster than he plays. I don't necessarily think that that's true. That's just what I kind of read a lot about. But I think that I think he's very adequate as an athlete. Did run a very limited route tree, like I said. And does he have a limited yak ability? It was hard to really tell because a lot of the catches that he was making didn't really have yak, opportunities for him. But man, he's fun. He's a player that gets pumped up. He's a demon in the red zone too. And so for my Denver Broncos, I would love to have Jaden Higgins, because somebody of his size paired up with Courtland Sutton would be awesome for Bo Nix. You talked about the inner triangle. They could both really work the inner triangle with both those guys. Strong, big body receivers. And then eventually, Jaden Higgins can replace Courtland Sutton. So it's a perfect fit there. But I think Jaden Higgins is going to be a stud. I would not be surprised, guys. My prediction is that he's going to ultimately go in round one. I just think he's too good to not. People said Tet is more like Mike Evans or Drake London. I think Jaden Higgins resembles those two players a lot more than Tetero and McMillan, just because of the sheer strength that he plays with. All right, let's keep this moving. Number 2 is my man, Emeka Egbuka, probably my favorite prospect in the entire draft at any position. Love this dude, man. Absolutely love everything about this dude. 81 catches last year, over 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. 80.9 grade against man coverage. He's a school record holder for 205 catches in his career, and that's at Ohio State, what a lot of people would call wide receiver U. I mean, some of the best NFL wide receivers played at Ohio State, and yet he's still breaking records, which is extremely impressive. What I love about him, man, is just go listen to this guy's interview. He's a calm, polite person that just loves to play football. Every single player and coach that you hear talk about Emeka Egbuka glow about the type of leader he is, the type of worker that he is. He's the heartbeat of the team. They never would have won a national championship without him on the team. He does anything that he needs to do to help the team out. He's a hell of a blocker. Andy NFL talked about this in the Discord. He said he's very much like Amon-Ra St. Brown. No doubt about it. I see that. Tough as nails. Not the biggest dude, but at 6'1", 202, you're solid. Not the fastest dude, but enough speed. Catches everything, man. Tough as hell. He'll get dirty in the run game. He's shown that he can play a little bit outside. I mean, he hasn't played a whole bunch, but he's been productive when he has. I think he's got pure inside out versatility. I think he could be a true outside wide receiver one in the NFL. But I mean, I love everything about the dude's game. Like I said, just the way that he doesn't get phased, man. He'll take a huge lick right across the middle and catch it. No problem. Gets back up and he's just all business. Super good. And then, man, is he surprisingly extremely explosive. I thought he tested very well. They had said at the pro day that he tested pretty decently as an athlete, but you can see it. He's definitely got plenty of athletic ability, very explosive, all that good stuff. I'm just rambling way too much. I love Emeka Egbuka. Just trust me, guys. He's a stud. He is, I said Jack Bech is probably like one of the safest or the highest floors. This guy's probably the safest prospect. You just look at him and you're just like, there's no way he's not a good NFL player. There's just no way. Like, the only thing that can stop that is a severe injury, which obviously we don't wish upon anyone. Otherwise, you just know he's going to be solid. Is he going to be all pro? I think so, but we'll see. But he's just going to be really good. Teams are going to love this guy. He's going to go a lot earlier. A lot of Bronco fans say they want him at 20. Every mock draft simulator has him available at 20. I don't think it's happening. I think Emeka Egbuka is going earlier than 20. But we'll see. I hope he doesn't. I'd love for him to be there. He did play mainly in the slot, but like I said, I think he could play everywhere. I think he's even more of a Z receiver too, because he can get down and dirty, man. He can get down and he can get dirty and he can run all those short to intermediate routes very, very well. And so as much as I like Jaden Higgins for the Broncos, I probably like Emeka Egbuka even more as a fit, but he fits anybody. He kind of screams Sean McVay to me as well. So we'll see. And that brings us to my number one wide receiver in this draft. It is none other than Matthew Golden, the wide receiver from Texas. I didn't really get it at first. And then I did a film review on him and then I was like, okay, now I understand. The guy, you look at him on paper, you look at the numbers, you're like, how is he the number one? He's just buttery smooth and he's unbelievably good. And he is by far and away the best route runner in this class. He's a professional route runner. He's such a smooth athlete. You don't even realize that he's moving very quickly. But all of a sudden, the separation that he creates is ridiculous. He catches everything. He runs a true 3-level route tree. He does it all. And he does it all with no problem. You put him in the slot, he's going to separate across the middle. You put him outside, he's going to separate and win on the outside. He does not waste. He's so efficient when it comes to his route running. Like, usually you'll see guys, they'll run and then they kind of slow down before they break out or before they come back or anything like that. Not him. It looks like he's almost just, stops on a dime, turns around. If he's doing any kind of out routes or, in breaking routes, he doesn't lose any speed. It's very impressive. He's buttery smooth. 5'11", 191, I get it. His weight is not ideal, but he plays tougher than that. And he just wins. I think he's a very clean prospect. I think he's going to be a beast. And he reminds me a lot of Justin Jefferson. Yes, he's a little bit smaller than Justin Jefferson, but he runs very similar buttery smooth routes. You don't know why he's open, but he is. Killed it at the combine, so you saw the kind of explosion that he has. He's a great yak monster and great yak ability as well. The cons that I wrote is, he could be stronger at the catch point in some situations, obviously against bigger corners, but that's not really how he's going to be used a lot in the NFL. He's going to be used to get an ability to get the ball in his hands, get open across the middle, get the ball in his hands, and let him go. And I wrote the moments of throttling back because I had read it in an article prior, and then I looked at a couple things in the film, but then I'd realized that in the game that I was watching, he was injured earlier and was kind of limited for the rest of the game, so it could have been that. So I don't see any kind of issues there. But Matthew Golden is a freaking stud, and he is my number one wide receiver. So let's go ahead, guys. Let me know what you think below about my overall rankings. Starting at the top, number 10 was Torrey Horton. Number 9, Jack Bech. Number 8, Kyle Williams. 7, Jalen Royals. 6, Tet McMillan. 5, Alec Ayomanor. Luther Burden, number 4. Jaden Higgins, number 3. Emeka Egbuka, my man, number 2. And then Matthew Golden as the number 1 wide receiver in the 2025 NFL draft. Guys, I appreciate you. This was fun. Longer video than I wanted it to be, as usual. But hey, I love doing this, man. Let me know your thoughts below. Who are your guys? Who are some guys maybe I didn't mention at all in the honorable mentions or on my top 10 list that I should look into? And I appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. Spend time with those people that you love the most. And until next time, y'all be sure to peace out.